Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Sunday, April 26th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen. Very happy to be joined by Brett Trimble, my partner on these Sunday podcasts. Brett, how you doing today?
Good. It's been a fun weekend, especially with the draft going on in the NFL and seeing how the Eagles selected. Questionable decisions, but overall it was a good draft and I enjoyed watching it. Did you enjoy watching it too?
Yeah, I did. Nice to get some, real sports activity that's going to impact the teams and the standings down the road. And I know you don't want to talk about that second round pick by the Eagles, but I got to ask you, what do you think about drafting Jalen Hurts?
Uh, I really don't know what was going on with Riley Roseman's mind. I don't know if he was just trying to kill a couple birds with one stone and just making sure we had a backup quarterback long term, or he's just indirectly saying Carson Wentz is leaving us. But I guess in the long run it would be good because we have a backup quarterback. But Jalen Hurts likes to win. He likes to lead a team, so I can't really see him being in Philadelphia for that long. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe it's just trade bait. So we'll
It
see how
is.
it pans out.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it makes some sense to me with Wentz being injury prone, but he is younger. You talk about the pick that the Packers made, getting a quarterback of the future, and it makes a little bit more sense to me because Aaron Rodgers is in his mid to late 30s. But maybe the Eagles are thinking about using Hurts a little bit like Taysom Hill, and they got that solid backup
Yeah.
like they used to have in Foles in case Wentz goes down.
Yeah, I did remember reading some reports on it about saying how they were going to run a two quarterback system, and then I also saw reports that Jalen Hurts had no idea what he was doing in Philadelphia. So it's right after the draft. So I mean, I expect we would get a clear answer once things die down. Um, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, the season's not for a couple months. Hopefully, it doesn't get canceled because I already miss the NFL. I already miss football. So
I know. Yeah, well, thankfully we got the draft. And speaking of news of getting back on the field, as we were chatting about beforehand, some optimistic times here for the NBA, with the NBA announcing that teams are able to open their practice facilities depending on what state. So, really positive sign for the NBA.
yeah, and I believe the date was May 1st. If your state government decides to reopen it, the NBA would allow you to practice. So that's great news. Hopefully, uh, we have a safe reopening, and we have sports come back soon. I know NBA and NHL are all resuming, talking about possibly just going straight to the playoffs due to the timing, because we've lost about a month and a week, right? I think this is like day 40 something of quarantine.
Feels like day 140 something.
I agree. I mean, I've just been encapsulated in my room up here in Rochester, but it's exciting. I mean, there is some light at the end of the tunnel, which is great. I can't wait to see sports come back, and we're going to be loaded when it comes back. We're going to have a lot of sports with baseball, hockey, and basketball. So I'm going to be glued to the TV watching all those games.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So, if you're new to the program, you can check out our website, DFS Coach Talk, as those are the three main sports we cover: baseball, basketball, and football. And we've been doing these podcasts 7 days a week to get ready for the resumption of play. But in the meantime, if you want to join the family, you can come grab a weekly, monthly, or yearly membership, and that membership will be frozen until the games start up again. And you can join us in our chat area called Discord, and we're interacting with our members every day. So we have a lot of fun in there, but we're really going to have a lot of fun when we get these games going, and we're going to be on top of things at DFS Coach Talk because we've been digging into all three major sports here one day at a time. Today we're finishing up the AL Central, as Brett's going to break down the White Sox, and then he's going to help me break down the Tampa Bay Rays as we start talking about the AL East. So, Brett, let's get into it. Let's chat about the Chicago White Sox, who finished third in the AL Central last year, and we've covered the other four AL Central teams here these last 2 days. So, what are your thoughts overall on the prospects for the White Sox?
I think the White Sox have done a real great job trying to rebuild the team. I know these past couple years they haven't been the strongest team, but this year they really showed a lot of promise. Or last year they actually showed a lot of promise. They finished 72 and 89, 28 and a half games back on the Twins, which the Twins were a powerhouse team in that division. Uh, they they really had a lot of power potential in Moncada, Abreu, and they also added two big names in Encarnacion and Grandal. So um, they really have a solid power core in their lineup, which is great. It's only going to help them, empty the bases when Anderson gets on base, and when you had the new guys like Roberts and Garcia, and it's. I think this team's really going to possibly mesh together really well this year, considering they're young. A lot of prospects that have been coming up. Luis Roberts, I think, was ranked third in the entire prospect system, and now he's getting his chance to be a full-time starter this year, which is great. And oh my God, and Mr. Garcia is
That's a good way to do it.
yeah, and Mr. Garcia he's also getting a starting job in the field as well, which it's great because now I feel like they have a really uh, real firm starting lineup that they can go off of every day. And I know teams are gonna switch in and out, which is normal. You're gonna have injuries, but I feel like this is the first time this year where I can say, oh, great, they have 9 filled out, and it's their 9 for the whole year. So uh, the batting order I have projected for this year is Tim Anderson. I have Yon Moncada, Jose Abreu, Yasmani Grandal, Edwin Encarnacion, Eloy Jimenez, Nomar Mazara, Luis Roberts, and Mr. Garcia, because I don't want to butcher his name again.
Laori.
Laori.
Also known as Mr. Garcia.
Mr. Garcia. So let's just dive into the batting order and see where we can go from there. Number one.
Tell me about Tim Anderson here.
Tim Anderson had a really good year last year. He's 26, batted .335, had 18 home runs, 56 RBIs, and 17 stolen bases. The home runs are good. The batting averages are great. I mean, Tim Anderson could be a really solid DFS pick depending on if he's on a hot streak. I know there was times last year where he was streaking. I believe there was a week last year where he had 4 home runs, and then I remember he got into this huge brawl because some pitcher threw at him because he was just going crazy. And I remember playing him last year. His on-base percentage is .357, which means he doesn't walk a lot, so you're not going to get your fantasy points from there.
Seriously, only 15 walks last year.
He
had 500 at-bats.
Yeah, I just saw that, and I'm like, to be fair, he hasn't always been known to walk. I mean, if you look at his past seasons, he had the highest amount of times he's been walked is 30 times, and that was 2018. So, I mean, he
good thing his batting average is over 330.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe he's got to get more plate discipline, But he's a really solid leadoff hitter for the White Sox. He can really get on base. If he gets his walks up there, definitely having over 400 on base percentage. I personally like him a lot. If he's streaking, I would definitely play him before his salary gets up there, because I do remember last year that he was early, low 3,000s, and then he ended up going nearly 4,000 when he had that really good week. So he's unplayable once you get to that point because he doesn't really walk. So, and home runs comes and goes. I mean, 18 home runs is pretty good for a shortstop, though, I do have to say. So, what are your thoughts on Tim Anderson?
Yeah, I'm with you on the general overview. And in these simulations, he's a lot cheaper. He's down at 2,600. And I think he's one of the 3 best value plays on the White Sox. I mean, there's a lot of guys here who can hit home runs. So we'll be talking about that as we go. But he averaged 11.13 FanDuel points last year. So at 2,600, he's a great price right now.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know why, but for FanDuel, for some reason they love to inflate prices,
Mhm.
and it bothers me so much. But can't control it, can't hate it, so you just got to move on with it.
That's right.
So here's what's interesting with the White Sox starting line, batting order. I keep saying starting lineup. They could move. They could have the same players, but they can move them around. So in my eyes, Tim Anderson's one. He's going to be a guaranteed one for me. But the number two spot is interesting because you could start going into the power of the order, where you could throw in um, Lori Garcia or Luis Roberts. You could throw them up there too and push everyone down. But for me, I think it's I'm gonna say number two is gonna be Moncada at third base, and he had a really good year last year. He batted 315. He had 25 home runs, 79 RBIs. His on base percentage was 367. Uh, he walked more than Tim Anderson though. He's at 40 walks. So
Now we're
um,
talking.
now we're talking decent walks now. Um, and it almost reminds me of Bryce Harper. I hear he strikeout hit, maybe walk, but that's just how it is. But I really liked him last year. He's got the power. He can get on base. Uh, he, if I recall, last year they had him at the 3 or 4 spot majority of the year. I really liked him a lot. He can clear the bases. He can get on base. He's just a really solid overall hitter, and that's something that the White Sox will need come to in the future when they have a when they're trying to make a push for the playoffs or when they're trying to do better than last year. But Moncada's a really good power hitter, got a lot of pop, and I wouldn't be surprised if he aims for 30 home runs, 100 RBIs. Especially with this new team, I expect them to be getting on base a lot more, and I think him, Abreu, and Grandal are going to be clearing bags left and right. So
Yeah, you're right. He had over 150 strikeouts last year. He's got to cut down on those numbers.
yeah.
And he batted the place he batted the most last year was in the 2 hole. He also
Oh,
saw
okay.
some days in the 4 and 5 hole, but I agree. I think he's most likely to hit second.
Yeah. And then my number three guy is Jose Abreu at first base. Jose Abreu, I recall correctly, had 33 home runs. Yes, 33 home runs, 123 RBIs, and batted 284 with a 330 on base percentage. Did have 152 strikeouts. Did you know Jose Abreu was 32? For some
Did
reason that didn't click with me for a second. I thought he was a lot younger.
Yeah, and I think he just turned 33. So yeah, uh, it's getting up there. Moncada's only 24, so bit of a gap there.
I mean, I mean, you can almost look at Jose Abreu being a veteran presence, if you will. I mean, I feel like he played. I feel like it's he came over to play here. I was thinking he was like only played in the MLB, like he went through the minor league system, but I'm pretty sure Jose Abreu came from down
Cuba.
south. Yeah, Cuba. But Jose Abreu, I feel like he was the guy that cleaned up the bags last year, as you could see from the 123 RBIs and 33 home runs. If his price point doesn't, if his price point's like mid 3,000s to low 3,000s, I would roster him almost every time. He's just a really solid hitter. He could score. He can score runs himself. He's 85 runs. He can hit. And he can clear bags. Can't run the bases though. I mean, not a shock, but he's a really solid. He's a really solid hitter to clean up for the White Sox, and if he stays in the correct price range, you can guarantee I would almost be playing him a lot. Um, just due to the White Sox being underlooked, but Jose Abreu does have a big name, so I wouldn't necessarily say he would go underlooked, but he wouldn't be rushed a lot. But definitely one of my favorite hitters for this team. Moncada and Abreu are my two favorite hitters on this team. Just purely based on power and the ability to get on base. So that's my number 3 hitter I have projected for the White Sox. Let's see. Number 4 is a recent acquisition through the free agency. Yasmani Grandal. Had a terrific season in Milwaukee, if I was right.
Yep.
I think,
Yes,
and
sir.
he earned himself a huge contract, and that's where he's at with the White Sox. He's only 30. I think he might turn 31. I think he's 30 still. 28 home runs, 77 RBIs. Batted 246, which is all right. But he did have 109 walks. So his on base percentage was 380. Really solid for a catcher. Um, he gets his average up. I mean, he's always hasn't really been a solid hit for average guy. I mean, if you look at his past seasons, he's been 246, 241, 247, 228. So, I mean, he hasn't really necessarily hit for average. I think he's more of a hit for power or walks. But I really do like him. He's another quote unquote veteran presence for the team. I really think he could mentor the younger players that are coming up because the White Sox do have a deep farm system.
Do you
Uh,
think do you think he can mentor Tim Anderson and tell him how to earn a walk?
I honestly, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you can teach Tim Anderson to look at the ball coming in, I think it would be. I think Tim Anderson would have a unreal on base percentage. I think he would be like 450. It's just, I just can't believe we went from what is it like 15 walks to 30 something. It's funny. They need to learn how to walk because
They do.
the only way you get runs is by getting on base. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed watching Grandal last year. He was a really good. So if you played on DraftKings, there's a catcher spot, but if you played on FanDuel, it's combined with first base. When I play DraftKings, I usually try and find a nice value pick, someone who can, if they get a hit or if they hit a home run, it really helps your lineup because. And I remember Grandal being one of my main picks just purely due to his power of hitting 28 home runs and being able to push the runs in. And he was always relatively cheap. If I recall correctly, he was like high 2000s, mid 3000s. I mean, he did vary throughout the season because, once you hit a home run, FanDuel loves to just give you 500, to your salary. They just love to add it. But really great catcher. I enjoy watching him. He's a really fun guy to watch, and he's going to bring a lot of talent to this team, which is great.
Yeah, and looking at the splits here, he's one of the best switch hitters in terms of consistency against lefties and righties. He hit 11 home runs against lefties and 17 home runs against righties. And like you mentioned, 380 on base for a guy that gives you 28 home runs. So I really like considering him. And as you mentioned, tough to find a catcher who you can really count on for a high number of fantasy points. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally forgot he was a switch hitter, but yeah, he's great. He's a really talented catcher all around, and I think he's going to bring a lot of potential. And number 5, we have Edwin Encarnacion. Man, has he been bouncing around lately? He was at the Yankees, he was with the Mariners, and then he was with the Indians.
Yep.
Yeah, and then before that, I think it was the Blue Jays.
He's making the rounds, but no matter where he goes, he knows how to hit it out of the park.
Oh man, for sure. Yeah. He's definitely. I just remember the Blue Jays powerhouse days when they had Donaldson, Encarnacion, Colabello before he got hit with steroids. That was a fun team to watch when they played the Rangers. So with Edwin Encarnacion, he batted last year. He only played 109 games, which he's 36. He's getting there. 244 batting average, 34 home runs, 86 RBIs, 0 stolen bases. Last year was the first year he didn't have a stolen base.
Well, I'm not too surprised since he's pushing late 30s now.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I'm like looking at his statistics now. I'm like, huh, First year, he didn't have a stolen base. 344 on base percentage, 58 walks. Not as good as Grando, but he's got a decent amount of walks. 34 home runs, 86 RBIs. Nice pop. I don't know why, but I think he's consistently hit over 30 home runs the past. I think it must be like 8 years. I think he's
Yeah.
42, 36, 34, 39, 42, 38, 32, 34. Yeah, past 8 years. So I think he can drive in some runs too. So it's gonna be a nice spot. He's in a nice spot, especially if the hitters get on base, to bring him in and really get some nice points for RBIs and um, home runs. I mean, it's really crucial to have home runs hitter in your lineups, especially if you're taking down tournaments. And if Encarnacion's in that spot to against the pitcher, I really think his value would be used really well, especially to take down something like a tournament. But he's a great acquisition. Really gonna help with the younger prospects as they come up through the system, and maybe he'll teach them how to hit more home runs. So who knows? But
yeah, he's a master of that. I mean, you mentioned 8 years in a row with 30 plus home runs, and last year he only had 418 at bats.
Yeah,
for those 34 home runs. Kind of reminds me of Nelson Cruz that we talked about recently. Just really impressive home run rate. So, and a great price on FanDuel in these simulations for. He's under 3,000 right now, and he averaged over 13 fantasy points a game last year. So, another great value.
Yeah, he's great. Now, my number 6 is Eloy Jimenez. I believe last year was his rookie year. He is 22, so fairly young into the new league. And guess this: he had 31 home runs and 79 RBIs. He batted 267 and he had 30 walks. So I'm right. This was his first year. Let me double check on that.
Yeah, you're right. First year.
Yeah, and 31 home runs for his first year. It's pretty solid. Almost like Mike Trout statistics right there. When he, but he was one of the top prospects in the White Sox organization. He got called up last year. Played 122 games. He's really got a lot of pop considering he is a outfielder. So he can be a great sleeper pick since this is only his second year, and I'm sure his value is going to be there. I'm sure he's going to be not as pricey as some of the big names per se that run the outfield. So I'm sure if you're looking for a value pick, you could look at him because he definitely has the pop. He's 6'4", 205 pounds, so he's huge. So I really think if you're trying to stack your outfielders with big names and you need a value pick somewhere, I think Jimenez could be a great pick for you. Because he's got the home run upside, he's got the RBI upside, and he's only going to get better from here. He's 22, so hopefully he plays more games this year. Even though I can't really say that because season's shortened, but I almost got really excited there playing 160 games. But
just daydreaming, dreaming of 162.
Exactly.
Probably gonna have to wait till next year for that.
Yeah, I know. I have MLB TV on my TV, and I could put the up to 9 games up, and can't do that now. But yeah, he's a really exciting player to watch. So I definitely would use him a ton in the value pick areas because I know he's probably not going to be priced too high. Start at the beginning of the year, so enjoy him before he gets up there, and you're gonna have to start making better decisions. Definitely a solid number 6 hitter. So you have anything to say about Jimenez?
No, I agree. A guy who's, like you said, likely to hit in the 6 hole, who hit 31 home runs last year in his first season. This team is ripe for stacking. The guys
in sure
1 through 6, you got so many guys with pop. They're just going to be hitting bombs left and right. And for a team that only won 72 games last year, to add the 4 and 5 hitters who can give you 30 plus home runs, they're going to be monsters.
Crazy. And I can't wait to start reading the statistics on the season. It's one of my favorite things to do in DFS is read the statistics and fully understand how a player reacts to certain situations and certain pitchers. And I think this is the first year where I'm actually going to take Chicago serious because as
Yep.
much as they did well last year, they were always looked at as, for say, a tournament stack because they weren't really consistent. Uh, they only did well against certain teams. But this year, I really think since they added Edwin Encarnacion and Yasmani Grandal, I really think they're a solid team to look at to stack. I mean, they could be a really great mid-tier or low-tier stack depending on their salaries. Granted, I mean, Encarnacion and Grandal are probably going to be priced up when the season gets back due to how they did last year and the popularity and how it's usually calculated. But I'm happy to say this is the first year that I would gladly stack them against a pitcher that's not so hot, or maybe a pitcher that's 3, 4, 5 on the rotation, and they could always go off then. So
Absolutely. Well, what about the bottom of the order here, starting with Mazzara?
Mazzara, I gotta say, Mazzara's got a beautiful swing. I don't know why. I just enjoy watching his swing a lot. He was acquired this off season, right? I believe.
Right.
Yeah,
he finished the year in Texas last year, right?
Yeah, I'm double checking. He finished the year in Texas, and then I think he signed as a free agent to the White Sox.
Yeah, he traded on December 10th for a minor leaguer.
Okay, all right. So he's traded. I thought I wanted to assume a trade, but I didn't want to. I want to put wrong information out there. But really solid outfielder. He's young. He's 24, so he's got a lot of time ahead of himself if he keeps producing. 268 batting average, 318 on base percentage, 19 home runs, 66 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. Grandal needs to teach this guy how to walk too.
Yep.
28 walks and 429 at bats. That is that's not the greatest, but he's definitely got some pop for being an outfielder. Despite only playing 116 games last year, I feel like if he played the full maybe 162, like if he played maybe like 140 something, I definitely could see him maybe being like in the 20s home runs and maybe like 70s, 80s for RBIs. He's definitely a really solid value outfielder pick. He's got the pop. He can really. I'm sure he got the upside to definitely put one over the fence against the correct pitcher. But I know also Texas is notoriously known for home runs, so we'll have to see how this year pans out. New stadium, new atmosphere, so we got to see how he reacts to that. I don't know if you read this in like DFS. There's some DFS companies that go in depth about stadiums. Like I know Radar has like stadium rankings with like the weather and or Radar grinders, my bad. And DFS Army has that too, where they calculate like and I don't know off the top of my head, but like they calculate like the percentage increase or decrease that a home run might happen, stuff like that. And
yeah, it's a nice feature and something we're going to work on once we finally get an announcement of what stadiums each team is going to play in.
Yes,
we'll be on top of that for the season opener.
That's true. So I hope Mazzaro has a good year this year. He's a young guy, and I like to see him in the bigs for a long time. I know he was a really hyped up minor league prospect in the early 2010s. I think he'll succeed well under this new team because I know he was. I think he was switching in and out with a bunch of people for the Rangers. So I think this would probably be the first year where first year in like 2 years where he have a solid spot in the starting lineup.
Yeah, and off to a good start in the spring. He batted 364 before the stoppage. So good start.
a good start for him in the spring. Let's see if he can. Well, it's been a long time, but hopefully he can bring it into the regular season. At number 8, I have Roberts. How would you pronounce that?
Robert?
Robert.
Yeah.
Like almost like Gobert. Like
Yeah,
Rudy
exactly.
Gobert. Oh, Robert. All right. Well, that makes it 10 times easier for me. So this is his first season. Um, this this man's this man's minor league stats were crazy. Andrew and I were talking about it right before this podcast. So he's been in single A all the way up to triple A this past season. At the age of 21, he hit 32 home runs, batted 328, and knocked in 92 runs. And that's from single A to triple A. And I just remember, and you mentioning this to me, and I was like extremely baffled to hear that. Those numbers are crazy, especially going in between, the different tiers of the minor league system. I mean, you have players that start in single A and never make it to double A, or players that make it to double A and never, make it to triple A. And I just, it's crazy how the White Sox just kept calling him up after, just smoking the minor leagues, and he deserves a spot, obviously, in the starting rotation this year. Great outfielder. This is what the projections are from Champ. They have projections with the projected starting lineup. He's projected 26 home runs with 73 RBIs and 26 stolen bases.
If they get that out of an 8-hitter, that's going to be sick.
Yeah, that would be that's just crazy. And of course, those numbers are inflated because they're minor league. They're basing it off minor league numbers. But I mean, if you get that out of an 8-hitter, I mean, the White Sox are in for a deep run in the playoffs. That's a nice lineup they have right there.
Yeah, and he's got that power speed combo. He was a 30-30 guy last year in the minors.
Yeah.
And in only 122 games, he put up those gaudy numbers. So if he's going to bat in the 8 hole and be cheap, maybe he's a guy we can play early in the season and be ahead of the curve before everybody really wakes up to how good this guy is.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm definitely going to keep him in my pool of value picks. I'm going to have a lot of White Sox in my value picks and a lot of stacks. I'm going to find out which stacks are going to work for me and play them in tournaments because, I mean, Robert, I mean, he's going to be so underlooked since it's just like his first year. But I definitely think if you want to look for someone that's not necessarily under the radar, but kind of on the low. I mean, he wouldn't be your first choice per se. He's definitely one of those players, and I would definitely trust him with the minor league stats that he's put up. I mean, going 3rd for 30 in the minors is insane, and if you give him a full season, yeah, he definitely would be probably a 30 for 30 guy in the regular season as well. So, he's an exciting young prospect. I'm looking forward to watch. I can't wait to start watching this team with the young talent pool they have and just seeing how the team's going to move in the general direction. It's going to be great. I'm going to enjoy watching it.
No doubt. Who you got in the 9 hole?
Leoli Garcia. Yes, Mr. Garcia. So last year, Mr. Garcia batted .279 with a .310 on base percentage. 8 home runs and 40 RBIs and 15 stolen bases. He plays second base for the White Sox, and he only has 21 walks. So I feel like if the White Sox just worked on their walks, they would have more runs coming in, and it would be better for the team. Mr. Garcia, I really wouldn't play him. I necessarily wouldn't play him. I mean, just in general, the MLB is stacked in the infield. I mean, there's tons of picks you can have in the infield, but I'm hope for him to have the best of seasons. I mean, he did have the starting role last year, which was his first season of having the starting role at second base. Had 140 games played. I think he's a great 9-hole hitter. I mean, he's not totally out of the picture. I think he can definitely do some damage down there with all the other hitters that are down there with Robert and Mazara. Jesus Christ. And I think he can. I think he'd be great. I think he's gonna be great for the lineup, but necessarily DFS perspective, I really wouldn't play him that much. I mean, you could probably agree with me at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
But
certainly, um, probably the guy I'd be least likely to play, not only for his stats, but the fact that he's going to be in the 9 hole. But I mean, that's saying a lot that we're 1 through 8 are all guys we would consider playing.
yeah, for sure. And not necessarily I would rule him out because again, when you're looking at stacks, you're looking at the hitters reaction to the pitcher, like how they do against the pitcher, how they do well against the bullpen, how they, so for say, let's say like he destroys the Orioles for a second. I mean, if I wanted to stack the lower end of the lineup, I mean, I for sure would play him. But I mean, it's a situational kind of player, and more often than not, he's not going to be your situational hitter that you're going to end up choosing. So that's my take on him. But I wish him for the best this year. I hope he and the White Sox succeed with that batting order. I mean, it looks stacked when you look at it from paper with multiple players projected to hit over 30 home runs or near 30 home runs. So
Yeah, and we've talked about the walks a lot, the lack thereof. Last year they were 11th in the AL in on-base percentage at only 314, and slugging they were only 13th. They were a 414 team slugging. So again, to add Grandal and Encarnacion in the middle of the lineup, guys that are going to improve both of those numbers in a significant way. This team's offensive prospects are really, I mean, the arrow is really pointing up. So, yeah, I can't wait to start, using some of these guys and stacking some White Sox hitting lineups. How about the pitching rotation? What are you seeing over there?
I'd say the pitching rotation is still one of the main struggles for the White Sox. They did try and get some help with Dallas Keuchel. Necessarily, I think that they still need more rotation and bullpen work. They do have some upgrades, which is there and present. So I mean, they are working on it. Like I said in the Phillies podcast, they needed help in the bullpen. They got a little help in the bullpen, but they mainly just kind of went after the starting rotation, see like if the guy can go 7. All right, we don't have to rely on our relievers that much, and it's kind of that mentality I feel like what the White Sox are having. Um, Lucas Gallito is back again. He had a bounce back year. Considering his 2018 year, he had a 6.13 ERA. This past season, he was 14-9, 3.41 ERA, 1.06 WHIP. He had 228 strikeouts. Pretty solid strikeout. His strikeout to walk, so there's 57 walks. So I mean, that's almost 4-1. That is exactly 4-1.
Yes, it is. How about that?
Doing the quick math in my head, I'm like, wow, that just panned out perfectly. Great young pitcher. He really has a lot of strikeouts to him. Definitely. I mean, if you look at the games and I mean, that's almost. That's. I mean, he has almost one. He has more than one strikeout per inning, based on the innings to strikeouts. So I mean, he's definitely got the strikeout upside. You could definitely play him and expect 7, 8 strikeouts depending on how long he goes. I I think I'm trying to look up to see his. Okay.
Yeah, he's 11.6 strikeouts per 9.
Yeah.
And you're right in terms of the bounce back. I remember he was really hot. He started out 10-1.
Yes.
So
yeah,
just
they're really good.
Really promising for a 25-year-old. This guy's a nice guy to throw out there on opening day.
Yeah, and I mean his home run per 9 was the lowest on the team last year at 1.2. His walks was the second lowest to Nova at 2.9. So I mean, he's got a lot of potential this year, and he's got a lot of um he's got a lot of room to grow as being only 25. Um, he's definitely one of the younger talents in the MLB, and it's more certainly one of the best on the rotation for the White Sox. So it would be he's definitely a pitcher you could throw out there, but not always guaranteed to win, unfortunately. But catch him when he's hot, and you'll get those points for the win, of course. So I really like him. I really think he's a solid pitcher, and I can't wait to see what he puts up this year. Hopefully, he can go on another 10-1 run like he did last year. Next on the rotation is Dallas Keuchel, a man who sat out most of last year. He went 8-8 last year. Only started 19 games. 3.75 ERA, 91 strikeouts, 39 walks. His WHIP was a 137. I do think he's good, a great upgrade to the bullpen in Chicago. It's another steady piece they have. They don't have to keep rotating out pitchers like they did last year. I know that they were. Let me see. Let me just count this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And there was 9 pitchers last year, which is not the greatest, but he's definitely another firm piece in the bullpen. I can definitely see him with a longer year have better numbers. I can definitely see him pitching around 200 innings, which is nearly twice as what he did last year, which would be great for Chicago. Necessarily, I wouldn't really play him. Just personal preference. I mean, and I don't know. There's a bunch of other pitchers on the slate you could use. If he's hot, I would definitely take into consideration to play him. But personally, I feel like unless it's like a really small slate where it's like 3 or 4 games, I'm probably gonna totally overlook him. Just for the pure fact that there's always going to be, he's always a mid-range pitcher. He's always 8,000 or 9,000. And for me, when I build my lineups, I either go with a stud pitcher or I try and find value. And that medium ground is just, I just don't like it personally.
Yeah, and he just doesn't give enough strikeouts. Only
Yeah,
7.3 last year, 7.2 career per 9 innings. So I agree. You know, the name value gets him a little bit more expensive than the output. So I'd probably pass on him in general as well.
I'm, yeah, I passed on him too. I'm kind of surprised. Um, there was a huge name a couple years ago that Chicago drafted. I don't know if you remember him. His name's Carson Fulmer. He played at Vanderbilt. Yeah, he was a really good pitcher from Vanderbilt. I'm surprised he hasn't made it into the starting rotation. Uh, but who knows? I haven't been paying attention that closely to them. But I just messed up. Okay. Okay. So the next guy I have on the rotation at number 3 is Reynaldo Lopez. 25 years old. Last year wasn't the greatest year. 184 innings, 10 wins, 15 loss, 5.38 ERA, 146 WHIP, 169 strikeouts. Again, there's no reason really to play him. He is a young pitcher, so maybe he'll have a better season this year, but necessarily, I feel like the whole staff is young except for Gio Gonzalez and Keuchel. So you have to be careful who you choose on the rotation staff because it could blow up, and next you know you're stuck with negative points.
Yeah, exactly. ERA over 5, gives up home runs, not enough strikeouts. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll pass on him as well.
yeah. So okay, I'll talk about that guy last. At the number 4 spot, I have Dylan Cease. He's 23. He's a really young guy. 23. 73 innings pitched, 4 wins, 4 losses, 5.79 ERA, 1.55 WHIP, 81 strikeouts. Another young pitcher. Necessarily wouldn't look at him to play. Unless he's streaking, I wouldn't really play him because he still needs to improve. He has a nearly a 6 ERA, so that's not for me necessarily. The last guy I want to talk about on the pitching rotation is Gio Gonzalez, the old vet. This is his 12th season coming up. He was scheduled to, if I'm right, he was scheduled to pitch in spring training, but he had some shoulder issues, uncomfort in his shoulder. So they shut him down. They took safety precautions and they didn't play him. This past season, he only pitched in 19 games. I mean, he had 87 innings, 3 wins, 2 losses, 3.5 ERA, 129 WHIP, 78 strikeouts, and 37 walks. I mean, it's decent for being 33 or 34. Not a huge guy I'd rely on. So that's basically the starting rotation I have, 1 through 5. Their closer, I have Alex Colomé. Last year he did pretty good. He had 30 saves, and then he had he pitched in 62 games, 61 innings. He gave up 42 hits, 28 runs. Out of those 28 runs, 19 were earned. Only gave up 7 home runs last year, which is great. Had 55 strikeouts, so definitely a solid closer. He was on the Tampa Bay Rays. He had 47 saves in one season, so he's definitely got the potential. So I think he's a great closer. And but overall, their bullpen could use some work. Iffy, but I definitely can see them getting through games. So that's my wrap on the White Sox. Wherever you're watching it, leave a comment. Give me your thoughts on what you think of them and how you think they're going to play out this year. And Mr. Hanson, I believe it's your turn to do the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yes, indeed. Let's transition to the Rays, and it's a bit of a reversal from the White Sox. You know, with the White Sox, you highlighted all those great hitters, power up and down the lineup, and then the pitching staff, really, other than Gallito as the ace, not much to really attack. For the Rays, though, it's really the reverse. For a team that won 96 games last year, I'm just really not in love with this lineup at all. Pitching is a different story. They've got a great staff. But let's get into the batting order first. I mentioned that Tampa got to 96 wins last year. The only team to have the same record at home and on the road. Exactly 48 and 33 last year at the Trop and then away from the Trop. It could be because they really don't get many fans at home.
I was just about to say that. I was about to say maybe they get more fans elsewhere, and that's why they...
Yeah, terrible turnout. I actually lived in that area for 3 winters, and I went to opening day once. It was against the Red Sox, and there were far more fans for the Red Sox than the Rays. Just unfortunate. But if they're playing in different ballparks this year because of the situation we're in, then they'll have a bit of an edge. They're not afraid to win on the road. So
no,
that'll be fun to watch. But in terms of hitting last year, 11th in the American League in home runs. They were 6th in batting average, 7th in slugging. So, as we'll get to here in a minute, the pitching staff definitely carried them. There's only 3 hitters that I'm going to look to target on a regular basis. And the first guy I'm going to mention is one of them. That's Austin Meadows, a young lefty in the outfield who got 33 home runs last year, slugged .558. Off to a really cold start this year in the spring, but that's a nice way to start, and they've got to be excited about his future, young with all that power.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite hitters in Tampa Bay for sure. I definitely rostered him a lot last year. That's all I gotta say.
Mhm. In the two hole, I'm projecting Brandon Lowe, a second baseman who had a great start to the season. Then he got injured. 17 home runs in only 296 at bats, and he was third in Rookie of the Year voting. 514 slugging, nice number for a second baseman. Started well in spring, batting 350. So there's a guy I would consider. He's a little bit overpriced, but he'll be a good guy to watch. Really a young star for Tampa there with that great performance last year. The number 3 hitter is a guy that I'm going to target more often, Yandy Diaz. He is just cheap, because of his price, really. His numbers aren't quite as good as Lowe in terms of power, even though he's a corner infielder. He hit 14 home runs in 307 at-bats, also dealt with injury. So we'll see how those guys develop if they can stay healthy for a full season. But in these simulations, he's only 2,500. So I think he's a little bit underpriced. Another guy with a good spring. So they definitely have to be excited about those two guys near the top of the lineup.
Yeah, they definitely have a really solid top in the lineup for Tampa Bay. I just remember last year how it was always like you were relying on Austin Meadows to clear the bases and stuff like that. But hopefully that changes this year. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, in speaking of cleaning up the bases, the cleanup hitter, I'm looking at Ji-Man Choi, first baseman who got you 19 home runs in 410 at bats, but really poor against lefties. He only hit 2 of his 19 home runs against lefties. So I think there's a decent chance he'll take a seat against left-handed starters this year more often. So that's just a little bit unfortunate for your cleanup hitter to be that poor against lefties. And if you just compare him to, all those guys in the middle of the order with the White Sox that you just went through, I'm going to take the White Sox guys every day. So, I mean, first baseman who only averaged 9.28 fantasy points last year per game on FanDuel, not somebody I'm going to throw out there.
No, that's not really a hot. It's not really a hot hitter, and you wouldn't really want him anyway. So,
but certainly will only play him against righties. So that's a key split to keep in mind. Next, in the 5 hole, we've got Hunter Renfro coming over from San Diego, where he's done a pretty good job hitting the ball out of the ballpark, but that's about it. 216 batting average last year, Brett. On base only 289. And now he's switching leagues, and so he's got to face off against a whole new group of pitchers.
Almost like a reset. Almost. I guess he's almost going for like a complete reset. See if he can find his groove again.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that'll be a big adjustment for him. And started out hitting 200 in spring, so I'm not going to play him. The 6th hole is often going to be filled by Yoshi Tsutsugo, who's coming over from Japan. This will be his rookie year. He's 28 years old. He's got some good history in Japan. He's hit 205 home runs, knocked in over 600 runs. It's been 10 years, but really with injuries, it works out to the equivalent of about 6.5 or 7 full years. So you're looking at a guy who's used to, hitting at that rate of about 25 homers, 90 RBI. So that'll be a fun guy to watch. He's really cheap. And so he's the 3rd guy in this lineup that I might target early in the season. As for the bottom of the order, we've got Willy Adames, the shortstop in the 7 hole. He's a key part of their future. So they've got to be excited about their up the middle defense. He knocked out 20 home runs last year. And the key stat for him is the splits again. He batted 292 against righties, but only 181 against lefties, which is pretty surprising. He's a right-handed hitter, but I think that's the key takeaway for me on Adames is to only play him against righties.
Yeah, I I feel like that's like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. That kind of just is like a shocker to me how it's so uh unbalanced, if you will. How so much better from the one side. Maybe you should play only on that one side. Maybe that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to just battle through it, because of his strong defense. So, we'll see if he can come up with some better splits this year. But that's how I'm going to approach him starting out the season. And then 8-9 hitters, guys that I'm not going to play. Kevin Kiermaier out in center, batting eighth, 14 home runs and 19 steals. So he was the most prolific base stealer on the team, but he's overpriced for the return on value that you're getting. Terrible spring, batting 125. So I'm not going to play him. Their catcher, Mike Zunino, hitting ninth. Another guy that is just not going to cut it. Batted 165 last year with only 9 home runs. No thanks. Two guys off the bench I want to mention are Daniel Robertson, who's a utility player, only batted 213 last year and 200 at bats to give you 2 home runs. So not a guy that we're going to play. And then Jose Martinez. Here's the one other potential value play. Coming over from St. Louis, where he's a career 298 hitter. Last year, he only batted 269. But how's this for one more split for you? In his career against lefties, he's batting 331. So if we can get him, here and there playing first base or outfield or DH at a really good price, like say 2,500.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get him low owned and get some decent production out of him. You up for that, Brett?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think he's a really great power hitter. He's definitely I'm just looking up his statistics now. He's definitely one of my favorite hitters that was on St. Louis, and I also got to add to the on. Oh, my bad. I'm thinking I saw completely else. Okay, so Martinez last year for St. Louis had 10 home runs, and then the year before that he had 17. Which is funny because he's 6'7", 215 pounds. He's a huge dude, so I would think his power levels would be higher. But speaking on top of hitters, I feel like Tampa Bay is still punching themselves about Tommy Pham.
Mm-hmm.
He was a really great hitter, and I'm sure they missed the 21 home runs and the 25 stolen bases, but I'm excited to see what Jose Martinez is going to do with this new team. I feel like he's gonna not necessarily like bounce back, but I hope he improves on what he's done before. So it's him and Meadows are probably the only, and pardon me, who's from Japan again?
Sutsugo? I'm
Yeah.
not sure on that pronunciation, but
Yeah, I mean, those are like the main 3 players I'd probably keep an eye out in the batting order. And Brandon Lowe. So actually 4. Those are like the 4 main people I would probably watch, and it'll be interesting to see how they play out this year. Because I know their pitching rotation is great, but not the hitting. So
yeah, I just don't think they're going to win at the same rate as last year with that lineup. Because it really is the pitching staff that carried them, and I expect to carry them this year. So let's get into that. Let's break it down. They were first in the AL last year in ERA and third in strikeouts. So I'm going to start out with Charlie Morton, who went 16-6, ERA just over 3, and gave you 240 strikeouts, 11.1 per 9 innings. Very low home run rate. He was third in the AL in Cy Young voting. So there's a guy that I'll definitely run out there and pile up the strikeouts. Number 2, we've got Blake Snell, the lefty who dealt with some injuries. He actually had minor surgery on his left shoulder last year, missed a couple months. ended at 6-8 with a 4.29. Um, you know, big down year off the Cy Young in 18.
Yeah, I
So
really hope he has like a bounce back year this year because that 1-2 killer, that 1-2 was huge killer, especially if you're playing um, on the road and stuff. That can really help you bring a couple wins back from the road and even at home because no one wants to face Charlie Morton on day one and then have to come in with the lefty Blake Snell on the next day. It's just
that
sounds
is
brutal.
that is dirty. Yeah, and he's even better in terms of the strikeout rate. 12.4 per 9 innings last year. Careers over 10 per 9 innings. So really strong 1-2 punch there. Third, we've got Tyler Glass now. He missed 4 months last year with a forearm injury, but he managed to go 6-1 with a 1.78 ERA, a WHIP under 1, and he was 11.3 strikeouts per 9. So if
Wow.
you just look at the top of this rotation, you got three guys. They averaged at least 11 strikeouts per 9 innings last year. And I don't know if you caught the podcast we did the other day on the Royals, but none of their starters are even giving you 9 strikeouts per 9. So it's
Yeah.
just incredible the difference. And we know how valuable strikeouts are in fantasy. So these guys are three terrific options.
Oh, for sure. And I definitely would say that on if one of those three guys are on the slate, I would for sure look at them. I mean, there's those three names are definitely the three names you do not want to overlook. I mean, unless it's based on salary and you're trying to load up on power hitters. Those are really three solid options that you can always count on. I mean, I wouldn't overlook it at all. So
Yeah, so in terms of the rest of the rotation, these guys they don't give you as many strikeouts, but very effective 4 and 5 starters in terms of their some of their numbers. We've got Ryan Yarbrough, another lefty who was 11-6 with a 4.13 last year. His WHIP was under 1, which is pretty impressive for a guy that could be a fourth starter, and he gave you 141 innings last year.
yeah, that that's crazy to me. I mean, Tampa Bay's rotations just I feel like it's on another world at this point. But
Yeah, just stocked up. Only 117 Ks for him in those 141 innings. Great start to the spring, 6 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts. So he's a fourth starter that you can invest in. The fifth starter, Yanni Chirinos, um, he's the one guy who's giving up some home runs. He gave up 1.6 home runs per 9 last year. So I think he's the one guy you could potentially attack with hitters on the other side. But, still his WHIP was 1.05, ERA 3.85. So it's not like, again, he's not your typical fifth starter.
yeah, if I remember correctly, Tampa Bay used to do a thing where they would put a closer in first.
Yeah,
Uh,
the
They
opener.
would, yeah, the
Correct.
opener, and then they would pull them out after like an inning or two, and then just throw in the next guy. Typically, other teams would have a starter, but they would have an opener and then put their starter in. So I thought that was kind of unique. I mean, I don't really understand the logic behind it. I guess to keep hitters off balance or keep the arms fresh, but
Yeah,
it seemed to,
combination of both of those things, and try to prevent the batter from getting to that third at bat against the starter. Um, just continue if you continue to get a different look out there, then you're just not going to get comfortable and get that third time through the order against the starter. And it was successful. From everything I'm reading and hearing, that's probably not going to be the plan this year. Um,
unfortunately.
yeah, it was interesting. Even Glass now, I heard an interview with him, and he said he wasn't sure if they would use that approach this year. But with the 5 starters we've just discussed, they really don't need to. And so my prediction right now is that they won't do that, but we know they could go back to that approach at any time.
I mean, I'm sure if they go down an arm, they could always pull out the plan if they need it for like a game or two because they obviously know how to execute it well. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was like maybe a handful of games. But otherwise, I agree with you. I do agree that they should stick with just a starter and just have them ride it out until they're done.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. They do have a strong bullpen. They lost Pagan, who had 20 saves for them, but their bullpen was almost as strong as their starters last year with that league-leading ERA. So, Tampa, again, is a team that I am not going to attack hitters against them very often, but I'm also not going to stack their hitters. So, if we could just combine the White Sox hitters with the Rays pitchers, we might have a Super Bowl contender or a World Series contender.
Yeah,
I don't know about their football skills, but baseball-wise, they could get to the playoffs.
Sure. Yeah, it would be a powerhouse team. I mean, it would almost be unstoppable. I feel like they would beat Billy Bean in the Oakland A's win streak record.
Right. Yeah, no doubt. So that's any other thoughts on the Rays before we wrap up here today?
Not really. I'm kind of disappointed in the route they went with their hitters. As much as they've always been a pitcher dominant team the past couple seasons, I really wish they didn't lose Tommy Pham or Hunter Renfro. It's one of those things where you're scratching your head and you're like, why? But otherwise, I really admire their pitching staff. They really have a solid 5 guys in there that they can count on every day until they're injured. But it's the way she goes. But I really like him. I really like him pitching wise and not hitting wise this year. So.
Brett, where can our listeners and viewers find you on Twitter?
At Defy_DFS. It's DEAFY_DFS.
Excellent. And you can find me at Language Olympic. You can find the entire team at DFSCoachTalk. And tomorrow we've got another episode. We're going 7 days a week here. We're going to continue to break down the AL East. Brett, what do you got going the rest of the day? You going to watch the episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance tonight?
I'm going to try. It's heading the end of the semester. So I do have quite a bit of homework. So maybe I'll do it and watch The Last Dance together. I mean, that'd be great. Maybe cook up some, frozen pizza and.
It's a nice combo. We've got. They're going to be highlighting Dennis Rodman.
I gotta watch it now.
Oh, it's going to be fun. I mean, that guy. I love watching that guy rebound, and I mean, he's got to be one of the most entertaining guys off the court, also. So that's must-watch television for me.
Yeah, I gotta watch it now. Now that you mentioned Rodman, that's going to be a great episode to watch. So I hope you guys tune in as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I had a blast doing it with Mr. Hansen. And we got a bunch more coming up. I'm sure we're partnered like every week. So, enjoy the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, glad you did your homework on the White Sox. Enjoyed teaming up with you here again on another Sunday. Look forward to the next one. And for everyone out there, thank you very much for listening. And please do tune in again tomorrow as we continue to break down the AL East here on DFS Coach Talk.